Welcome to my channel. We already are at the end of November, and if I want to color all my Christmas pictures which I had planned, and I have plenty of amazing and very nice looking pictures in all my books, I probably need to start coloring them now. But the problem is that even if we already have first snow, I don't feel any Christmas mood, and I decided that maybe if I look at my previous works, at all my previously colored pages, I can start to feel a little bit like Christmas. And I decided that I will try to do such video about all my finished winter and Christmas works. Of course, I won't show you now all the finished pictures in this book. You know that usually I do such videos in December when I film full review of all my available books and finished works. So today only winter pictures. But I'm afraid that there will be a couple of parts because I do love to color winter and Christmas. So I already managed to do many works in many books. I think that we will start from Perfect Christmas book. It's by Good Vibes and Warriors, Escape to Christmas Past. It's a mix of Christmas and regular pictures which from the first sight are related to the story but not exactly with the Christmas elements. And what I want to show you is the first spread in the book where I tried to do Victorian style building with more muted and dark colors for the walls, and for the roof where I used graphitins and Inktense, and with a winter landscape behind. It was very convenient that here we already had this black printed background, so the only thing I did, I improved a little bit look of the clouds. When I worked on them with white paint, they started to have more soft shape and they probably look now a little bit less childish with those softer edges. I also added a little bit of yellow and purple for shading. And here I did Christmas town, which is far from the solitary house. Here everything is shiny, they celebrate Christmas, and here we have like solitary building. I try to show this difference in atmospheres, even if here we also have tiny Christmas tree. The next work, which is also definitely wintry, it's where I experimented with background. I think that I mostly used for the background different graphite, but I also added a little bit of violet or violet ultramarine for the background, so it created very nice matte background. But I also sprinkled on top of it a little bit of white and blue acrylic to make small connection to the blue in the middle around Scrooge. Actually, when I started to color it, I was totally uninterested in the image in the middle. I was more interested to experiment on a good paper with those background colors. But in the end, I think that it turned into quite a nice picture. It's quite often thing with these books when image which is not very interesting from the beginning, you start to experiment with mixed media, and in the end, result is quite nice. Next one is this Christmas candle. Again, similar type of the background. Here I used blue, Prussian blue paint to do the background. Then I sprinkled gold, so it's shining to show the halo of light around the candle. I didn't like initially halo which we had with black lines, so I had to cover all of them with a white marker, and then with polychromos pencils I did this golden plate and candle holder. Quite nice. And I think that it was when I tried to learn how to color gold, so I tried to find everywhere where I can color golden objects. I always want to do this fireplace, but that's my usual problem. I never have enough time during winter and before Christmas time to do all pictures which I want to. That's why I said that maybe it's time to start now and not in December. Here we have this very strange spread where left side totally mismatch the right side, but it was interesting to do both of them. Here you can definitely see that central part is colored with Prismacolors. You can easily recognize all their lavender, lilac, powder blue colors which I used to create atmosphere of the very soft, very tender morning after Christmas. And again, I practice how to do gold here on the base, so here I used polychromasis. Background was initially black with those slightly ugly dots, but I added a little bit of halo around. I hope you can see it even with my terrible lamp and terrible light. And I added a little bit of stars. Here I did it simply because I wanted to use somewhere this very intense viridian green color. I had it in my set. I realized that never before I used this tube of paint, so I decided that I can use it at least somewhere. So that's why I used it here. Again, image which I didn't like from the beginning, and I was tired at that moment from the traditional red and green and gold color combo, so instead on the garland I used only blue colors to create interesting difference between warm and cold colors. Well, background color, what can I say? I tried, so at least it created a nice matte surface, so paint by itself, it was good, but color definitely is a little bit strange. Next, I have this reindeer. It was complicated coloring because the background is extremely full of various objects. So what I did, I tried to divide them into several color groups, like blue colors for the snowflakes, red colors for berries, boughs, all those flowers, and green colors for the pine tree and other branches and leaves. And in such way I tried to minimize amount of color used, but still it's very colorful. And of course you know that in this book we don't have any texture on the animals, so it was a little bit challenging how to do the reindeer, but in the end, with French grey colors from Prismacolor set, I think that at least I managed to do some shading on the body of the reindeer. Next one, I remember that it was my first picture in the book. This very nice, very interesting picture of Victorian bakery. Beautiful architecture here, very interesting building with this door full of baked goods and presents. A very nice texture of all those bricks and beautiful door. I used mix of watercolors to do the background and pencils to work on the small details, and for me it's usually the best way to do anything, to use mixed media. In such a way I can do my best works. And honestly I don't know how it's possible to do winter pictures without paint, because all this falling snow or snow laying on the surfaces you can mostly do only with paint. Next I have this Christmas spread where I used another not very traditional color for the background. I was thinking that if I can use something pastel, something tender as a part of the Christmas coloring, and actually all those intense and traditional bright colors of gold, red and green, they match very well a very delicate pink background which I did, I think, with two new color crayons or maybe with watercolor paint. Anyway, video is on my YouTube channel, so if you are interested you can go to my playlist about escape to pictures and to find it here. I especially love here this bells which are adorned with flowers. For me they are the most interesting, and this one with berries also. So I think that it's one of my best works in this book. I hope that during this December I will add at least one or two pictures to this one. It's a pity that such a nice book I can color only limited amount of time, but as I said, here we have more natural pictures which you can color throughout the year, and I try at least to use it a couple of times during the year, but the full flip through of all my finished works I will do in December. You know that December is traditional time for me for this huge review of all my collection. So our next book, it will be Sagar och Zagner. This one is definitely one of the best books to color winter pictures, and many of them helped me during previous winter seasons where I had a limited amount of winter and Christmas books. We can start from this spread which shows quite nice and different stages of winter pictures in the area where I live. Not very often we have weather with nice peaceful snow falling from the sky. Much more often we have snow mixed with rain. It's unpleasant, but what can I say? We already got used to it. So for me it's more like November or November beginning of December, and this one is definitely with more Christmas atmosphere. It's one of my favorite pictures, and again I have video on my YouTube channel. It's a pity that we can't get this book now, but still this coloring was interesting because I used around 7 or 8 various media for coloring just for fun. Watercolors, graphitins, ink tents, various pencils, gouache paint. To do this picture where I tried to play on the contrast with warm colors on the village and lighthouse and the cold atmosphere, cold weather around. Here I colored mostly with pencils, and here we have this delivery of Christmas postcards, I believe. And again, I do love when on the winter pictures we have warm light in the lantern inside of the building. I think that it creates a very nice and cozy atmosphere. And all animals in Emily Lindehall-Ober books, they are always so adorable that I absolutely love to color them. They are simplified, so you don't have to think about very realistic fur, and that's why coloring in this book is always relaxing. The next one is probably one of my first ever pictures where I did snow and where I did fur. Fur again is very simple, but on the white bear you can do only a little bit of shading to indicate fur. But I had a lot of fun of doing this page because mostly it colored with Derwent Drawing with their limited color palette, but with their creamy and soft texture they are amazing on this paper, so it was quite fun to use them. And here again I tried to play on the contrast between muted or pastel colors of the background on the leaves and buildings and much more intense colors which I selected for this very fashionable sweater. I wouldn't mind to have such sweater myself. Well, I remember that it was one of the years when somehow all my selected winter pictures they had white bears. That's the second one. Here I tried to use slightly different, more colder hues to indicate for more cold gray, even a little bit of blue. And again, look at this very peaceful, very cozy group of animals. Rabbits, foxes, deer, baby and mama, and this adorable princess. Usually, I'm a little bit nervous how to color those simplified big faces in the Emily book, but here I think that she was quite nice from the beginning, so I definitely selected this picture as one of my best and my favorite in this book. Well, pencil background isn't my strong side, but I try to improve. At least on the good paper it was a pleasure to do. Next, I don't know, but for me it's also a winter picture, because here on top I tried to do something like those winter lightning, when we can see on the sky a little bit of green and blue, and moose. For me it's also one of the winter animals, so I decided to show it also in this review. Next one is this sleeping troll. Again, I used a mix of different drawings. You can see it on the bird and on the hair, on some of the roofs also, with more traditional Prismacolor pencils. I think that this contrast, it always works quite well. I don't remember about sky, but again, you can see it on my channel. The only thing I can do, I wish that they would reprint this book. Next, it's my third white bear in this book. Here I am proud of the background, because initially it was totally empty. So I added those mountains, this winter landscape by myself. I decided that I can do it like perfect winter snowfall with mountains, with even quite heavily fallen snow. I deliberately selected this very intense purple for the sweater to attract all the attention to the white bear, because I was afraid that with white fur and almost white mountains behind, he would be slightly lost, but behind of the bright clothes, now he looked more definitely like a focal point of the composition. The only poor thing on this page is this bird, which I tried to turn into cardinal, but I miserably failed. Poor thing. And finally, I have here this Santa Claus, but it's in blue clothes instead of red, because in our Slavic tradition we have more of this. It's like grandfather frozen, if we translate its Slavic name. In traditional color it's blue instead of red, so I decided that if I already did a lot of Santa Clauses, I can do one in blue. I even managed to find several winter pictures in the books by Maria Trolle, several finished pictures of course, and the first one probably is my best Maria Trolle work so far. And here I remember that I did mixed background with watercolors and with Neocolor crayon to get this a very pleasant bluish green light shade around the figure, and then a little bit of watercolor in the corners for more intense blue. Here I decided to use less traditional colors for the leaves. I think that I used Inktense pencils, and for the main image I used a mix of Prismacolors and polychromases. Apart from her hand, which I totally dislike, and slightly square shoulders, I think that everything else looks quite nice. I especially love this wreath of flowers and berries. And another one is this wreath I added here wooden background. Again, I needed somewhere to practice how to color, how to do wooden texture, so I selected this one. I imagine that maybe it's hanging somewhere on the wall covered by wooden planks, so I added those vertical lines. And well, the rest itself it's not so bad. Maybe now I would add more paint or more Posca to make those pine tree branches a little bit more fluffy, but even now I think that it's a nice work, so I love to look at it. And I also have one work here. Initially, it definitely wasn't a winter picture, but I decided to turn it into illustration to the fairy tale It's Silver Hoof. Well, fairy tale it's about God, but the source of the main story is that when that God stomped hoof, it produced some gemstones and gold. So it was lucky for the poor people who encountered that God. They managed to gather some precious thing and to spend normally winter. Well, sorry guys, I know that it sounds ridiculous. But anyway, I remembered about this story and I decided that instead of the goat I will have this deer, but here I did this stomped hoof, which produced some golden flowers. I turned those lily of the valley into gold. If I decided that it will be a winter page, then I need to do something with the flowers, so they turned into gold. And here I tried to create some shining to show that there are gemstones around. I even colored all the flowers with blue to create more frozen and winter atmosphere. I experimented with some strange textures on the frozen water, on the ice here, so it was quite old picture, but probably it was one of the first where I at least tried to color out of my comfort zone, because you know that usually I color in realistic way, so even to do blue leaves it was strange for me, so that's why I have quite soft tender feelings towards this picture. And finally I want to show you what I have in Seasons by Hannah Carson. Surprisingly, here winter is the most colored part of the four seasons of the year. So what I have here, let me... Still not so much, but at least something. And we will start from the page which I almost ruined with the background. Everything went quite well with the reindeer, with all those lanterns. Probably I selected it because I really love this idea that a reindeer is hanging, bringing those light with the lanterns. Here I did quite nice pine trees, and usually I struggle a lot to do pine trees that would look three-dimensional and not very flat. Then I did all those crystals of ice. And in the end, when I decided to do very strange bouquet background and with very strange pink, yellow and green colors, they totally didn't match the idea of the rest of the page. They overwhelmed the look of this page. Simple dark blue background would be much nicer, but because I wanted to practice how to do this background, I didn't care about the final look of the page, and now I pay the price. I tried to mask it and sprinkled on top of it some blue paint, but now it just looked dirty. So I decided to leave it as it is, as a lesson to myself that sometimes simple is better. You can show your skills in doing some complicated background, but for the final look of the page, it could be disadvantage instead of advantage. and interesting treat. The second one looks much better. Here I mostly used a watercolor and maybe a little bit of neocolor crayons for the background, but it's my usual mix of matte media. You can get matte background with watercolors or neocolors, and then on top of it you sparkle metal shining paints and you have very festive looking background. I deliberately wanted to do those candles in on very light pastel colors to create contrast to the golden feathers on the birds. And again, I love to do contrast between cold and warm colors on my pictures. So those ice crystal stars, I think that they look nice together with gold. At least they definitely attract attention. Next spread I absolutely love, and I consider the left side as one of my best finished Hannah Carson's works, and surprisingly here I did everything with pencils, even the background. I think that everything I did with Prismacolors. I remember that it was a long story because I was afraid to do fur, and maybe I was a little bit overwhelmed when I did fur on the cat, so for the mice I didn't have enough patience, so they look a little bit bold without visible fur texture, but the whole page, especially the eyes of the cat, gemstones and crystals, I do love them, and the whole color palette for me is quite pleasant and interesting. I hope that it won't be very highlighted under electric light, so you will be able to see some details. And another one where I laughed at myself at previous choice of Viridian color for the background, and I decided to do similar thing, but this time I selected Viridian and blue-green neocolor crayons. Again, they are totally unused in my set, so I decided that maybe one in a time I can use them. I use them first, then on top of it I tried to add this silver pearl watercolor to create frozen atmosphere, and maybe it worked here. So I sprinkled, I stamped it, and you can see it around the main image. So maybe it helped to create some winter atmosphere, but most of all I do love my birds here. I think that it's a very interesting color combo. I use this color combo a lot throughout all my works, but with such background and with the rest of the page I think that it worked pretty well. Yeah, and I think that's all for this book, unfortunately. And the last book we will look at in this first part of the review, it's Gnomes in the Neighborhood. Here my favorite work is this one, which I did when I needed somewhere to test my pastel shades of watercolor paints. They have a white pigment, so they look very pleasant, and they also have nice matte texture, perfect when you need to do shading on snow. They are more bluish or more with violet shades, so quite helpful when you do winter pictures. And I also use them here for this pleasant pink shade of the sky, because you know that usually I do blue and blue sky, so I was tired, and when I decided that I can use pink, I was crazy happy. Here we have this adorable Scandinavian style gnomes. I think that they are very adorable, but the snow woman, they are also nice. I was afraid that they would be slightly lost because we have a lot of snow around, but I outlined them with very thick white line, so I hope that they are visible now. Actually, I did a lot of winter pictures here. As I said in the beginning, when I didn't have Teresa Goodrich books, I mostly colored in gnomes in neighborhood. So my second work is those gnomes trying to create huge snowmen. I think that I smiled all the time when I colored all those gnomes. They have similar colors on the coats, but slightly different hats, just for fun, and quite nice and smiley snowman. I am not a big fan of pine trees in these Dennis clad books. I never know how to color them properly, but with paint it's easier to do comparing to coloring with pencils. And as usual, my background is very sparkly. On top of blue paint, I used several shiny metal markers and pens. Then I sprinkled metallic and pearl-tinted watercolors, so in real life, not under electric lamp, it looks very nice and shiny. The next one is the page where for the first time I tested my Arteza pencils. When I purchased the set, I was curious how they behave, and I noticed that Arteza set has a very nice selection of greens and blue, so that's where I started to use them, and I was pretty happy how Arteza behave on this paper. And you know that I do love figure skating, so when I find page with skaters or skates, I always try to color it. And finally, I have a slightly different color palette. Again, I tried to experiment with different background colors or sky colors because I was tired of traditional blue. So here we have maybe evening atmosphere, or maybe it's just some original sky in this charming gingerbread village. My favorite part here is of course this pipe chimney because it looks like chocolate cookies, and those snowmen, again, they are very nice. It's old work, but I still smile each time when I look at it. So thank you for watching this first part. Let's cross fingers and let's hope that it will help me to feel finally winter and Christmas spirit, and that I will be able to start doing my Christmas pictures, because I usually start to color them very slow in the beginning of December, and in the end of December I start to cry that I don't have enough time for all the beautiful pictures which I wanted to do, but which not so inspiring to be colored in January. So I need to speed up and to start doing all Christmas trees, all presents, all beautiful Santas, which I selected as my December Christmas plans. Thank you, and I hope that the second part of this Christmas winter review also will be interesting.